This is the 2021 Genesis G80. It is a four-door sedan with a V6 and all-wheel drive, and it looks fantastic. And in the week I've had it, a few people have even said, "I like your Bentley." And I have to laugh at that. I used to correct people, but now I don't correct them. I just go, "Hey, thanks." So I've done a video on this already on my channel where I just drove it and put some music on it, and that's because it looks good. But what I want to talk to you today about are the features, and I know you've probably seen other G80 videos, so I'm not going to repeat everything they say because I do things differently here on New Car Spin. I do not edit that much, and I try to bring in the character of the vehicle rather than just regurgitate a press release. So what I will tell you is, I love this car. This is a very good looking car. It has striking looks and it gets a lot of attention and it moves. And as far as the way it goes down the street, it reminds me of a Mercedes S-Class, a W124 E-Class, even the CLS 53 AMG, and well, without the nonsense air suspension, because these are just steel springs, and it just rides superbly over these rough Dallas roads. And it also reminds me too of the Infiniti Q70, which is interesting because that Infiniti kind of reminded me of an old school Mercedes. So we are in the realm of a solid German feel is what this car is giving me, and that makes total sense because of who they poached at Genesis. They poached from BMW, so that feeling is definitely directly in this car. I wouldn't compare this to an old BMW. This is more or less a Genesis, so you should drive one and feel it for yourself. I think the first thing you'll notice is it feels kind of sprung, but then after a couple days the ride becomes very noticeable as far as stable. I'll keep it at that. So I do like the way it rides. And as far as this car though, I think the biggest problem is people will think this is an underdog, and it's not necessarily an underdog. This is a reputable, real vehicle at this point. It's not an imitation. It's not trying to be something else. They have gone above and beyond and done their own vehicle, and it will compete with the Germans and the Japanese. Obviously, Genesis is owned by Hyundai, and it is Korean, but it isn't without its contradictions. And I think by saying that, I would just say the most astute buyers pay attention to the details. And as you can see, there are plenty of details in here. The open pore wood, the stitched leather, and pretty nice back seat. This driver's seat moves back when you get in and out, so this isn't the driving position I have. It just slides back, and then when I get in and start the car, it slides forward, so you can enable and disable that. I just wanted to show you a few things. So I have driven the Kia K900, and in the Kia K900 I said, oh, you know what, if you're going to be in a luxurious car in the back seat, you need a way to lock the doors. Well, Genesis has door locks, so that's good to have, because if you really did have a driver and your driver went to go grab something for you or whatever, and you're sitting back here, you want to be able to lock the doors, and now you can. And also you'll see this here is a feature that was in the Kia K900, and I would like to say there are no Kia on Hyundai parts in here. However, you will see some familiarity. I have to hold this button down, and again, there's no button there for it, but you can basically fold this seat all the way forward and then move it. And then you'll get more rest space in the back seat. Let me just let that go. Now there's no button back here to do it, but you could do it from the side. So that's all the way. This is a vent here for the vented seats up front. There's no footrest, so it's not really a K900, but this also isn't a G90, which is even larger than this. So as far as the G80, the contradictions are still here. I know in my Volvo S90 that I personally own, I have power side sunshades, and you can't use power sunshades back here. And there is a power rear sunshade, but there is no button to control it back here. So that's kind of disappointing. And in my Volvo S90, which is pretty much the same price point as this, I have a T6 R design, and it's got the air suspension and stuff. So it's about the same sticker price, around $65,000, same as this. I can't open the sunroof shade or just even open the sunroof in general from back here. So there aren't too many features for the back seat that make sense when you compare it to some of the competition. Wait, I spoke too soon. There it is, the rear shade, which is okay. It just would be better there because I don't have to do some contortion to get to my seat controls. All right, so taking that back, let's go out for a second because I do want to show you something really interesting. The sound system, by the way, is remarkable. It is Lexicon, which I believe is part of Harman Audio Group, and it is impressive. I do like it. So we'll close the door. I do like how the glass here is flush. That helps eliminate the side noise. We do have very nice Saint-Gobain secured, some very high quality glass on this vehicle. But I noticed, it took me 5 days to notice this. Soft closed doors. Look at that. So my Volvo doesn't have that. So that's a trade-off. If you don't want the side sunshades to be powered, you still do, though, get soft closed doors. Something else? Right here, this concerns me. It says this vehicle utilizes 2G or 3G wireless technology, blah, blah, blah. So that's the built-in like SOS feature and stuff like that. The problem is 3G support is going away at the end of December 31st, 2022. So in a year and a half, the 3G or 2G wireless system that this sticker says this car has will be antiquated, and that means that the cellular service will no longer work. So that is a bit of a concern, and buyers at this price point will pay attention to that kind of stuff. But you can see here we have our connected drive button and our SOS. So does that mean after December 31st, 2022, these will be completely useless? I don't know. I like this button being here because then we can just move everything back. I don't know if we could do it both at the same time. Oh yeah, look at that. That's very convenient. The seats are beautiful. We'll leave it right there. And in the center, we have some storage. There's no USB port in here. There's a little tray, things to move around. We have a concealed cup holder, and that's great. I don't like exposed cup holders, so that's beautiful to have. And then here we have wireless phone charging and 2 USB ports, and that's about it. I don't even think I saw USB charging in the back. Doesn't matter though, because this interior is what puts this vehicle on par with the competitors. This is no longer an underdog brand. And when we look here, there is plenty of technology to look at. So we will be driving this. Let me turn it on. And we'll talk about the contradictions again. These are not just normal gauges. This instrument cluster here is actually a 3D cluster. I personally have a hard time viewing it. Things kind of get fuzzy on the sides here because I have astigmatism and I'm farsighted and nearsighted. So you can see too here, infrared lights. There are 2 cameras in here that look at your eyeballs, and that's how 3D works. It plays with your eyes to make things look like they're 3-dimensional. So your cameras won't pick it up, so you won't see it here on screen, but I have disabled that so that I can see the gauges clearly, because when they're on, and there are 2 modes, there's normal and strong. When 3D mode is on, everything looks blurry to me and my eyes can't focus fast enough. So thankfully that could be disabled. So if you're an old person and you drive one of these cars and you go, oh, this display is all wrong, turn off the 3D. Now, something else too is this V6 engine is very stout. It's a brute. And this thing moves so much that I don't feel like I need to talk about horsepower numbers, because frankly, nothing in here has been inadequate on the power side or the luxury side or anything else. So yes, The only contradiction here is that sometimes I'll notice a big vibration. So it's not the smoothest engine in the world, and it doesn't sound great. It just has a good sound to it. Now you can have your infused sound through the stereo system adjusted. I've got it set to off, but you can do low, medium, or high. As far as like an engine noise that comes into the cabin, I disable it. So when I drive along today, that's the actual engine noise, not the infused cabin sound. The steering wheel looks great. It's very controversial, but the only thing I would say is when you're driving along and you see these buttons here, because they're crooked, it looks like your steering wheel is cocked to one direction or the other. So it never looks like you're driving straight in a straight line. And so that's the only thing I don't like about it, but I mean, it's nothing I hate. If we look here, you'll see that we have our controls, and you can go into setup and everything. And then here we also have a haptic feedback screen system, and that's nice to have. This is very Jaguar, Land Rover, Range Rover-like, and this is very Audi-like here with the temperature display in the dials. However, if you're going to do a screen like this, and I'm a software engineer, so let me just go on my little rant. If you're going to do a screen like this, it needs to include the features that you get up here. So for instance, if we go through this display, what you'll see is we have, there's our active sound design, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so if I go to climate, there is recirculate air, but there is no auto recirc. And the climate system itself is not very clear that it doesn't have auto air, auto climate recirc. So it doesn't necessarily tell you whether or not it's actually filtering the air or doing something for your health. So this is where it'll actually do certain things here. So smart ventilation is when the climate is off, it's activated to maintain. So there's nothing in here that says if the air is dirty, it'll recirculate. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, so the other thing too is the climate features. This one here, indirect ventilation, that means it goes through a passive vent up here when you're using the air conditioning, and it diffuses the air. But when you're in Texas and it's 105 degrees out, you want direct ventilation, and that you'd have to go through the menu to get to every time right here. And that should be here. All of those climate settings should be here. There should be a gear icon, and with that gear icon, I should be able to activate and deactivate, sort of just like I can here with the front and rear. I should be able to have settings, and I should be able to go auto recirc. I should be able to go climate, parking climate. I should be able to go indirect ventilation and not have to go into that menu there. So if it's not here and it's there, it's sort of hidden. And if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So I wish they could update that. And that's part of my whole thing with the subtle things about this car that kind of make it seem like there's just a little bit more they can do to really blow people away. So we've talked about the engine refinement. We've talked about the climate system and this screen here. And we've talked about the side shades and the lack of controls for the side shades and stuff. That's about it. I mean, we have soft closed doors. We have everything I said the Kia K900 should have, and it would be a competitor rather than an underdog. And here we are in a Genesis G80, and it is a competitor. It is not an underdog. And we'll talk about this now. So then we'll take a drive. This is the gear change selection, and this is the screen control here. So I do like the overall layout. I like the volume knob and everything that they have here. This is a little weird to use. It's hard for me, but luckily this is a touch screen, so you can just go directly to home. However, there are times where I'm driving along and I have to confirm a screen, right? And as I'm driving along, I'll press down. As I'm driving, I'm not looking at what I'm pressing, and I realized I hear a ding, 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 bing, and that's because I pressed park while I'm driving. Instead of pressing down here to confirm, I'm pressing here to confirm. And I know that other people have complained about it too, like a passenger grabbing this and turning it, thinking it's like a iDrive from a BMW or a command system in Mercedes to control the screen. And the reality is this does not protrude. And I think if this was to protrude and maybe this knurling was on the outside, sort of like it is here, and it was just larger, or if maybe this P button here for park had some sort of braille on it, I would know that I'm not pressing on this pad, I'm pressing on this. There's just no difference in the feeling here between these two centers. It's almost like even the concave shape is the same somehow. So that's really just that. Now, what we'll do is we'll drive it, and I will show you the next big impressive thing here is, well, drive mode. I haven't been using drive mode because the contradiction here too is you can go into sport mode and your seat configure changes and everything changes, and I don't really feel a difference in the way the car rides, which is a good thing, but I've never really used it because I've never had to. There's so much power in comfort mode that if I put my foot down, I'm fine. However, you'll notice too, when you go from sport mode and you get out of it, you go directly into eco, which sucks. I think it should be comfort, sport, custom, eco, and then you go back to comfort, because no one wants to go from sport to eco, trust me. And I think that's part of why I haven't really used sport mode, because you can't get back into comfort without going through all of these different modes again. And the other benefit is when you're on the freeway and you go over 70, it might even be 80 miles an hour, the driver's side seat bolsters come in and the seat starts to hug you at freeway speeds. And then when you slow down again, it relaxes again. And that's in comfort mode, and that's automatic. So do I need sport mode? No. The other thing too is the driver's seat has massage functions. And if I press a button here on the side of the seat, down in here, so ignore that receipt. If I press the button down in here, you'll see that there is an option for ergo motions. So I can do pelvic, lumbar, and whole body stretching, and it definitely does exactly what it shows you on the screen. And you could change those settings as well. So that's nice to have, but it's only on the driver's seat. And I wish a car at $65,000, $70,000 would just have it for the passenger seat as well. I know some Audis do the same kind of thing, like, oh, you want memory seats for your front passenger? Good luck. And this is the same thing we have here. We don't have any memory for the passenger. So let's get driving. Car's on, foot on the brake, just moving into drive, and we're off. Now what I want to show you is the turning radius, or the turning circle. You can see there we're against the curb. I'll go ahead and turn on the camera here. So the curb's on the right, and we have a front camera. We also have a surround camera where we can see ourselves. So yes, we are close to the curb, that's great. And what we're gonna do is we're going to make a U-turn here. And that box is kind of in the way. We'll see if we can go a little bit further and miss it. Okay, as you drive, the screen shows the 360, and that's not, oh wow, it even shows the wheels turning. But that's obviously not the color of our car, and those aren't our wheels, so they just have a generic G80 to view. So let's go ahead and do this. It's pretty clear, both directions. Turning, 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 turning. Am I gonna miss the box? I don't think so. Oh, I missed the box. And look at that. Look at the space I have to the curb. You can see I have like 3, maybe even 4 feet from the curb. This is an incredible car. This car is more suitable in the city than some city cars I've driven, like, you know, the Chevy Bolt and the Toyota Corolla hatchback. And there are some city features in here that are default, like the auto stop start, which does not retain the memory, so that's an issue. I wish it would. This is a tricky intersection here, so let me just make sure it's clear to go. All right, we're gonna jump on the freeway real quick. You get to hear the vehicle, I won't say much, and you'll get to understand the acceleration and everything. Bad accident, it looks like. Definitely doesn't lack in power. And I love the features, like if you signal left, the camera turns on in the instrument cluster. If you signal right, that camera turns on, and that really does illuminate everything that's in your blind spot, and it will also warn you, and also in your heads up, it'll show you if someone's in your blind spot as well. And of course you have your icons on the mirrors. So safety is not an issue in this car. And I'd say even when you compare this to, let's just say that Mercedes in front of us, although that's just a C-Class, they all look alike now, C, E, S, whatever. You'll notice I have this icon here, which is a steering wheel with lanes. And if I press that and the steering wheel is green, now the car is steering itself. And I've tested this in different ways. I've gone through corners on the roads like this, and not taking turns, obviously, just driving along the road and having my hands off the wheel, but also changing the speed of the car. Because when you slow down in a corner, the car will actually turn tighter because of centrifugal force. So basically, it wants me to put my, there we go. So the steering system on here is interesting, because if I put that on, it means I can do something like clean the dirt off my sunglasses, or do something really quickly where I might be distracted, and it will let me do that, and it will take care of the driving within the lanes or in the traffic. And that's not the radar aspect. The radar aspect is right here. You have to turn on the cruise control for that to work. So you have two different drive modes in here, and it's very similar, creepily similar to how the Mercedes works and how the Volvo works. So Genesis is not an underdog when you look at the technology, except for the aspect of the 3G, 2G thing, which I hope they rectify and just go straight to 5G, because they have to. Everybody has to. So we'll see if they have like an option to upgrade that later in the future. But Genesis is watching. I know they're listening, and I appreciate it. That's about it here. I know we've got self-driving capability to an extent, and we've got the lane keeping aspect of it. I turned off the green steering wheel button, but we still have lane keeping. You can see with that icon there. And if I do breach the lane, see that? It corrects automatically. So it does that even without the steering wheel button. If I do the steering wheel button, it will then just drive within the lane by itself. So that's the difference. Which, if you were to do in the Volvo, you'd have to have cruise on, and I think only the Mercedes can do it this way. Which the Mercedes would also change lanes on its own, which if you had that mode on, and this does not. So that's the only difference here between the Mercedes and the Genesis on the technology side. And the sunroof's pretty cool too, because it has a shade that opens like a butterfly. And it opens up and out, so you have more space inside the cabin. It doesn't really eat into your headroom. And overall, I would think that this car is awesome, especially if they have a sport version. If there was a way to get carbon fiber trim, and I would probably get a sport version of this. I'd have the grille and all the chrome trim blacked out. I'd probably get this car in white. Black, see, okay, you see the mirror there? I don't know if you could see it vibrating, but the mirror is vibrating. The engine's idling because I turned off stop start. And there's just a little bit of refinement this car is missing, and that's the kind of the contradiction I'm talking about. There's just little stuff that astute buyers will notice, and I think that's Genesis's kind of, not a weak point, but it's just like the last few things they need to work on to make this car really edge out the competition and just kick their ass. Let's close this sunroof. Really bad traffic over there on the freeway. Oh, they're completely stopped. Well, that's not good. All right, so there you go. It is 11:15 in the morning on Monday, April 12th. This car actually gets picked up, well, right now between 11 and 1, and then they drop off a Toyota Supra for me to drive, the 4-cylinder this time. And I do want to thank Genesis for letting me drive the G80. I can't wait to drive the GV80 and the G70 and the G90, because the way this thing drives, I definitely wouldn't look at a 5 Series or an E-Class. This thing just has so many things going on about it where it gets a lot of attention and people think it's a Bentley. It's like, I'd rather have this than something that looks like everything else on the road. And it might be a bit of a controversial design. People don't like the grille or whatever. I really don't care. I'm in here. This is what I get to look at. And I'd rather look at this all day for a couple years than something else. All right. Well, there you go. The Genesis G80. Different review from what you've seen on other G80 reviews. And I hope you see it from my perspective as someone who really enjoys this vehicle, really thinks there's some areas they can improve upon, and overall, really, I just really enjoy it. And, you know, the car I have right now is a Volvo S90, so keep in mind that it is a bit of a larger car than this, and it doesn't have as much power as this, but it still has the same refinement and technology. So the Genesis really has come a long way, and it's not an underdog. All right, have a great day. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. Cheers.